Hello and welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome to our brand new review on Sherlock. Last week, me and you jumped on and went live, and we gave our review on Sherlock Series 4, Episode 1, The Six Thatchers. Today, we are giving our review on Episode 2, The Lying Detective. This is, of course, the second episode of Series 4, based on the novel by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, very, very loosely based on the adventure of the dying detective. Now, if you watched our live stream last week, you're aware that me and you both you more so had a very lukewarm reception to the premiere of the new series of Sherlock.
Very lukewarm reception.
We've spoke a little bit just before recording on our overall thoughts of this one, so it's going to be a very interesting review. People watching at home, please get commenting. Let us know what you thought of this episode too. We had a very nice comment last week saying that I'm basically an idiot for not picking up on Sherlock's drug habit. Well, I feel very stupid about that now, considering all the themes and the elements that he's going through in this episode. So I guess we'll just start off with you, Tate. Overall impressions going into this episode based on the trailers and thoughts.
I hadn't actually seen any of the trailers going into this episode. I literally knew nothing about this episode before seeing it, which I think is a nice way of going into it.
Yeah.
It's because I didn't enjoy the last episode that much at all, even slightly. And this episode, there wasn't really much that I knew about it. Like, I knew it was possible. Is it Toby Jones who stars in it?
Yeah, Dobby, the house elf himself.
Yeah. I knew that he was going to star in it, and I quite like his work. But other than that, literally nothing. Went into it blind. And mixed reviews. I'm going to say I enjoyed the episode better than the first episode. However, I feel, and we'll talk about this slightly more when we go deeper into the episode, I feel like the writers are just getting lazy. And when I say that, without offending anyone here, I really want to, but I feel like they're trying to make this more for American audiences. And because of that, they're trying to make the storylines more generalized, the deductions and the mysteries more generalized, and they're trying to make it kind of more towards that market instead of it staying and making the viewer kind of slowly kind of work it out in their own heads. This is very kind of, they basically give you the answers instead of letting you work it out for yourself.
Yeah, and I don't know if I agree with the whole Americanization of it, because I'm like, America, you have your Sherlock, you have Elementary, you have the Robert Downey Jr. films. Let us have ours, please.
No. We don't talk about Elementary. They have Elementary. We really want Elementary. That's as far as I'm aware.
But no, I'll agree. And also, we should say as well that this whole discussion is going to be completely spoiler-filled. So if you haven't seen the Lying Detective episode yet and you don't want anything spoiled, go away, watch that, come back to us afterwards, because we're going to just go through the entire episode with this thing. Yes. I will kind of agree. And I mean, we'll devote an entire section to the very end as its own thing later on in our review. But I will agree that many of the revelations and how he figures things out, in previous series, especially the first two series, they seemed like there was a logical progression to it. And although you may be left behind and Sherlock's off in his own world doing his thing in his mind palace, there was a reason for it. And by the end of it, and if you watch the episode back, you could go, oh, okay, I see how we got there eventually, and these are the clues. In this one, these are the kind of revelations that no one would be able to get, because they're just sort of thrown in as an afterthought at the end. There are a few instances, but they're not done in an organic way where it feels like a mystery.
Sorry, my roommate's just come back.
Did your roommate see Sherlock?
He doesn't actually watch the series, but it's worth asking. Hey, do you enjoy watching Sherlock? Of course you don't, because you watch Elementary. And that is just not a show that you should watch. Watch Sherlock, dude. Watch Sherlock, but don't watch Series 4. It's not so good at the moment.
I'm going to watch this.
But
this episode really was just, I'd say it was going really, really well, and the kind of last 20 minutes, half an hour.
Yeah. I guess we'll start off then, and then we'll get into our discussion after that. Give me your biggest positive, and I think I already know what your biggest negative is going to be, but we might be on the same page with that. But we'll start into that, and then we'll take the discussion from there.
Take this one. Biggest positive. Biggest positive I'm gonna have to go and say was I'd say to Sherlock's psyche. So the kind of drug-fueled trip that we go on during the entire episode, and the way that his brain works, especially when he is completely out of his mind on drugs. I really like that element of the show being back in. It's always good to see when his brain is panicked and all over the place. I feel like it makes for his best moments because he is his weakest, but also at his strongest. Like, he works his hardest, but it also is his greatest flaw. So it's really good seeing that. Biggest negative was the ending.
Yeah. Oh, yes, it was. Definitely. For me, I'll agree with you on best part. Definitely Sherlock, and just Benedict Cumberbatch, how he played it. I thought it was fantastic. How with his mind, you talked about his mind shifting, how his mind was having to play catch up, and it was almost like he was in a permanent state of lag with his thoughts because his mind worked so quick. Loved that. And I guess if I'm going to cheat and give another positive, I'm going to say Toby Jones's performance, because
I'm going to have to go say that.
Insanely good in this episode. And actually, this is, I guess now, the instance where we've had 3 actors from the Marvel Cinematic Universe featuring all together. We've got Martin Freeman, who appeared in Civil War. Benedict Cumberbatch is obviously Doctor Strange, and Toby Jones played Zemo. I lose track of all the weird German barons and villains and rogue gallery of Captain America.
Zemo was in Civil War.
Yeah, what was the name of? I'm gonna search that up now. If
Wait,
you want to
I can't remember Toby Jones being in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
He was in the first Captain America film, and then he was like on a hologram in Civil War.
Oh yeah.
He played the German guy that beamed his consciousness into tech. Let me have a look. It was
whilst Chris is having a look, please go
Arnim Zola.
Please go and vote on whether you enjoyed this episode using the little eye button on the screen, which should be in the top right-hand corner. We're just kind of having fun doing this live stream. Just like to know, did you enjoy the episode? Yes, no.
So I think a good jumping off point is Sherlock, if we just jump straight in with him, because what I said was at the end of the first episode was that I thought the episode was okay, but it would really depend on how they advance the themes and the state of the characters based on the ending of episode 1 going into episode 2. And I think they absolutely did that fantastically. I mean, each episode is about 90 minutes, so they have a fair amount of time to delve into it, but obviously they have the plot and the new case that they have to go on as well. But I thought they meshed it very well. I will say as well, in terms of the actual filming and the editing and the style of it, I loved how mind-bending it was. And I guess that works well now that Benedict Cumberbatch is Doctor Strange, but when he was like inceptioning up the wall, I thought it was fantastic. It's stuff we haven't seen in Sherlock before, even despite the fact that the editing's always been top-notch in these episodes.
I preferred the editing in this episode than I did in the first episode. I felt like the first episode was then showing all of the different effects that they have on their
PowerPoint. You really didn't like those transition effects, did you?
I'm pretty sure there was at least 5 crossfades in the episode, like back to back. It's just like, oh crap, we've run out of effects. Just crossfade it.
Crossfade everything. But no,
this episode had some really, really nice like transition effects. Not only that, but actual effects that they used in the actual show, like Sherlock walking up the walls, just Sherlock's mind going insane and shit like that. It was really good.
And ultimately, I know I'm jumping ahead a bit here, but there's so much to talk about in this episode that I'm kind of like Sherlock at the minute. My mind's all over the place with it. But when it gets to the ending, and with a lot of the instances in Sherlock, there are a lot of times where it really does stretch the realm of possibility of how far he could have planned ahead. And I think that this episode may have been a little too far, how he planned events out 2 weeks in advance, 3 weeks in advance. The whole thing with, guessing which psychiatrist Martin Freeman would go to, I thought that worked because, oh God, I forgot his name. Watson plans it in his own head when he's talking to Mary, And it's like his inner thoughts saying that, well, he knows that it would have to be in cycling distance from the house. You wouldn't, get an opinion from another man because Sherlock already annoys you so much. So I liked how he deduces it like that. But when he sets everything in motion for 3 weeks in advance, that's when I kind of phase out of it. But I do like by the end how, and this is where the Miss Me DVD really comes into play, the fact that he has to save Watson by putting himself in harm's way, and that's the only way that he can get Watson out of his apathy and shake him up a bit. I love that about it. And you missed it last week, but after the end credits where the DVD said, "Go to hell, Sherlock," really, really plays into great effect at the end of this episode.
I did actually go back and watch that, and I see how it fits in. And I liked the way they changed it into that kind of storyline where he has to get Watson to save him. But I don't like where the series is going in that respect. Sherlock works best as more of a detective than a human being, and that's always been his main traits. He is more human than Mycroft, however, he is not as human as John, and he is in that middle kind of ground with the intelligence that he has solving these crimes. And I don't like the way that this series, and I love it when they usually go more character-based. It's brilliant to go for a more character-based thing, especially when they have such good actors and good writing to go with it. But the way they've gone about it by having to kill off a character which felt almost meaningless in the first episode because of the way it was handled, and the way that it's been kind of carried forward where the entire series is not about him being a detective, it's about him and his best friend getting back together and putting their minds straight. That's not what Sherlock is. That really isn't. I want the detective back. I really want the over-the-top, enthusiastic detective which he doesn't know how to solve. Whereas this episode, we find out within the first, I'd say, half an hour who the villain is. So basically who done it, where they did it, basically how they did it within the first half an hour, and then the rest of the episode is trying to catch that person. That isn't detective work. No. And sure, they have the midway scene, spoiler ahead, where like, it wasn't her, it was a different person. I like that. It confused me a little, and then I thought, okay, who was the other person? Kind of went to the back of my mind, but like from there, it then became an uphill battle because he'd been outwitted. And the first half of the story, it felt like it just wasn't Sherlock. And it didn't come back to Sherlock for the rest of the episode, and I feel like it hasn't come back to Sherlock for the entire series so far. So,
I don't know if you picked up on this as well, but I mean, I love the villain in this. As I say, I thought Toby Jones played it fantastically, and it was just nice to see a guy who was just a straight-up serial killer, like no bones. Like this guy is just a pure cold-blooded killer. But on the other hand, I did think it was. I kind of agree with you. It's better when Sherlock, when it is a mystery, and ultimately we find out that the mystery really isn't the identity of Culverton or what he's done. It's the very end of the episode. But
I want to go ahead and say that
the
mystery and the detective side of the episode was solved within the first 10 minutes, and the rest of the episode was based on getting the evidence to catch him. That's not Sherlock work, that's police work.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but Culverton Smith is just the most on-the-nose evil bad guy there is. Like, he's not even trying to hide it. The bit where he visits the hospital and he's like, how do you catch a serial killer? And he's acting really unnaturally weird, even for like a public, a public...
I know, but I think the whole point of that was that power allows you to get to those positions. And I like the was in power and basically said, look, I'm a murderer.
Yeah.
One actually did a thing because he was in power. No one wanted to challenge him in that sense. And Sherlock was the only one who was able to challenge him in that sense. I liked that. What I didn't like was the actual execution of it. The fact that there was no mystery behind it at all.
And I do feel like, I don't know if you got this impression, but how we're introduced to him and his relationship with Sherlock, it feels like these two guys have had a history for a long time as protagonist and antagonist, and we've never had that. So when they're talking and how they're talking, it sounds like as if Sherlock was talking to Moriarty, which we've had a lot of setup for. But this felt like I'd missed a bunch of episodes where Sherlock's been trying to capture this guy or trying to bring people around to the thought that this guy is a killer. But when you throw it all in one episode where you've got to introduce the new bad guy, you've got to introduce what he does, why he's doing it, and the fact that Sherlock's got to take him down, it feels like this would have been benefited if this guy had maybe appeared in series 3, for example, even as a bit part, just so he's in the background.
Yeah. It would have been nice maybe to even have like him as almost like a subplot. So we see in one of the earlier series, Sherlock is investigating like 6 different cases at once. If you have him in the background as one of the cases, and he's just kind of building up evidence, and a bigger case comes up and more evidence comes into one, he just kind of pushes it aside, and then finally he goes forward to actually tackle this one, and that's when like Toby Jones's character actually says, well, I know that you've been kind of chasing me for a while, I know that these cases have been coming forward instead of mine, come chase after me now. That would have been good. That would have set it up perfectly, because it would have given us at least some backstory. And some motivation to get along with this storyline.
And it'll be interesting to go back, because I'm just reading a bit of the trivia on this particular episode, and it says that when John bumps into the mysterious woman on the bus in the first episode, you can see the poster on the side of the bus is Culverton Smith. So that's cool, but I mean, that's not history. That just shows that he's around. Like, I wanted some character interaction with Sherlock from a previous series, maybe. Nevertheless, I thought he was fantastic. I loved the setup. The opening scene was fantastic. He almost plays it like the most dark and twisted Bond villain I have ever seen. I like that he's got a special room for it. Although later on in the episode, when we find out that he's got all these secret passageways that he's built in his hospital, and that he used many different architects, so no one really entirely knew the layout. I do question if many people are just randomly dying due to faults in the hospital. Why no one would say this is the worst hospital in the UK. Random people are dying. They've had electrical faults which are shorting out life support machines and all this stuff. Close this hospital down.
I can explain that.
Okay.
The first thing we see in the entire episode of Culverton Smith on the screen of a news article, I think it says that he's entrepreneur philanthropist, which means he's obviously stupendously rich. He's pumping money into this hospital. I think most or all of the money that he earned is being pumped into this hospital so he can feed his sick fantasy. Because of that, everyone just kind of looks aside, because they know that the money is coming in and they don't want this hospital to close down. They want this hospital to look positive. And because of that, any kind of mystery behind it just kind of gets swept to the side.
Yeah. And I mean, he compares himself in the episode to H.H. Holmes, and there's been, even on the trivia page, but a lot of people have been saying, I think George mentioned, I don't know if he watched the episode, but he talked about it with me, says that there's been a lot of comparisons you can draw between Culverton Smith's character and Jimmy Savile in terms of, you know, using that power that they have to do all these horrible, despicable things. There's even cases that Jimmy Savile had access to corpses in morgues, very similar to the character in this towards the end of the episode. So I think you can draw a lot of comparisons there, especially in the public visits he does and like the serial adverts and things like that. It's not completely on the nose though, like they don't obviously state that, but it is there in the subtext. He also
they don't make him wear like they don't make him wear 80s Adidas tracksuit.
No, like a dollar necklace
and a giant gold chain.
No, there's none of that here. None of that here, thankfully. But as I said, Toby Jones played fantastic.
Rose-tinted glasses.
So I guess we could talk about Watson as well, because inherently this episode is all to do with Sherlock's and Watson's dealing with the death of Mary, and how the two ultimately have to come together at the end and find reconciliation in each other. I'm still really hung up on the idea that Watson keeps blaming Sherlock for the death of his wife, and ultimately at the end he says, like, you know, she jumped in the way of that bullet in the first place. And I'm like, fucking right, like obviously that's what we've been saying the whole time, but I don't know if that's the natural.
Can I just go ahead and say that I didn't say last episode, because he immediately blamed like Sherlock immediately in that first episode. I want to go back and say, didn't this series start as him as a soldier, where he saw his friends being killed in front of him,
Yeah.
Especially when one of his friends, which is in series 3, the first time we actually get to see them, another major in the army who was kind of berated because he took some rookies into the war and he was the only person to come back alive. Him, even though it was them putting their lives in danger to save, like, to do whatever they were doing as part of the army. And in this situation, he blames Sherlock as a hypocrite of himself.
Yeah,
in that
but
sense.
I don't know if that's a natural instinct of significant loss like that of a loved one, where the first thing you go to is blame. That's like, I mean, if I'm going with films recently, like A Monster Calls, different circumstances, but one of the character's main emotions that he deals with at the start is putting blame onto someone else with the situation that he's in. So I don't know if that's what Watson was doing, because ultimately it's still like an uneasy friendship at the end of this, and an uneasy understanding by the end of this episode. But there is a moment where Watson does blame himself for initially losing that connection with her, in the sense that he wasn't cheating on her, but he was texting another woman at the time he was with Mary.
I want to go ahead and say that in the 5 stages of grief, according to psychology, he immediately skips to anger. Like, literally, he doesn't even go past denial.
Yeah.
He just jumps straight to anger.
Mm.
And I feel like this episode is just bargaining, depression, and acceptance.
Yeah.
Like, just the rest of the 3.
But
which means that I reckon next episode he's going to be... He has been just shot, probably in the face.
Mm. It's going to like hit the wall behind him, isn't it? We know how Sherlock goes. They big these big cliffhanger endings up, and then it's just paid off in like a really...
No, this is the second episode. Like, I'm pretty sure in Sherlock there has been very little use of guns. This is the second episode in a row where it's ended. The final scenes have ended with a gunshot.
Didn't Series 1 end with a gunshot? Where he was at the
Series 1 did not. No, he was holding a gun. He was about to shoot the detonator, but then Staying Alive played on the phone and Moriarty walked away.
Yeah, talk about anticlimactic beginning to Series 2, right?
I think it was more humorous. It was quite nice as a tension breaker, shall we say.
I'm trying to think what else I can say about this. You could talk about Mycroft, I guess, as well, in that I would say you were talking about the whole essence of Sherlock becoming more human as this series has gone on. And I do like the elements where we do get that little bit of humanity, but as long as it has a course correction and cycles back round to the completely distant social outcast, asexual individual.
He shows his humanity when compared to Mycroft. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And I mean, Mycroft at the end, I did like that moment with the business card where she's like, call me, and he's having that tension as to whether to do it or not.
I want to even say Mark Gatiss wrote that in just so that he could get some action.
Yeah. Mycroft needs, everyone else is getting some action, apart from Watson now. Actually, no, Watson's still getting some action, kind of.
Hey, even Sherlock slept with someone in, like, Series 3.
Yeah. Yeah, and probably
almost got
Series
married.
2. Probably Series 2.
And probably 2 as well, yeah.
And probably at the end of this episode, somewhere during the ending of this episode too.
Really?
Well, when he said text her back, didn't he? And I think he did. So maybe they met up in some hotel room somewhere with his kinky dominatrix.
Oh no, that's the next episode. That is literally the whole of the next episode. It's Benedict Cumberbatch sex tape.
But I played it to you. I have the Irene Adler text tone on my phone now. I'm very happy about this fact. I'm sure much embarrassment is going to ensue from that fact. But
no, as long as you're brave with it.
Yeah.
Oh, just my local dominatrix. Hello.
Oh, they're all in my contact list. You know, they're all in there. Oh, wow. Okay, right. Back on course. What else can we talk about this episode? It feels like there's a lot to talk about this episode, but it feels like we've covered most of it. I think the big thing
there
we've
is
covered
one element that we haven't covered.
Let's talk about the mysterious woman.
Oh,
so let's talk about when she's first introduced.
Mysterious woman is first introduced. What does she write down on the piece of paper that she gives John? Phone number, and then is it an E, or what's the actual name of the mysterious woman?
Oh, that's a good. It's Eurus. Eurus, which is the Greek word for the east wind.
Oh, that's nice.
We knew there was going to be
a.
we knew there was going to be a lot more to it based on the mysterious woman that appeared in the first episode last week. But oh boy, I don't think we could have predicted what the revelation was with her in this one. I liked her character throughout this second episode when she was the northern, very nice woman who hung out with Sherlock, who was eating chips and sitting on a park bench and walked with him all night. I liked that. And that's where we first get that weird, trippy vision that he had of his past. Now, I can only assume that they think that someone drowned because it looked like they were screaming in like water or something at like a beach. I don't know if he was just remembering a past event or if someone drowned there. If it's
we
like
saw
a
Redbeard again, didn't we?
We saw what, sorry?
Redbeard.
Redbeard. I'm not sure.
Sherlock's dog when he was younger.
I can't, it's like a blink and you'll miss it like shot. I was trying to deconstruct what's in it, but I don't know if she's a long presumed deceased sibling or if, you know, she just went away somewhere. I have no idea. I'm sure episode 3 is going to highlight all these things for us. But we get to the end. Now, I was speaking to someone else about this episode as well, and they thought the same as me. When you realise the psychiatrist is someone in disguise, did you think that it was Moriarty in drag for a split second?
Yes. And that would have been so good.
I wanted that to happen.
So good.
I thought it was going to be like Mission Impossible with like the whole latex mask and the voice changer chip on the throat.
No. Do you know what it would have... two thoughts immediately went through my mind. First one was, okay, it's going to be Moriarty. Second one was, hold on, no, it can't be Moriarty because let's be realistic here, the voice changer thing. I thought it was going to be the woman who helped out Moriarty in the Reichenbach fall, the reporter.
Oh,
that was my immediate go-to. I was like, oh, Christ, it's the reporter. Okay, this sets up for the Moriarty finale. This would be good. No. Who are you? Oh, I'm the East Wind. No, this was a bad twist. I just can't believe that Sherlock writers would think that this was a good idea. First of all, we first find out that Sherlock may have a sibling about 30 minutes previous. So this twist, where most of the other twists from Sherlock have been set up over series, they've been set up for like a long, long time. I think the shortest twist to this date that had been set up across multiple episodes was the fact that Moriarty appeared in the Great Game episode earlier on dating Molly. And that was good because it was almost as if like, okay, we know Moriarty's out there. So we're expecting her to show up at some point. We expect it to be someone we've seen before. Oh, I didn't expect it to be Molly's boyfriend. Good. Now, on the other hand, this was Sherlock has a brother. Okay, cool, nice. Nope, it's a sister, and she's evil. And she's in drag or dressed up as different people. And she's met John and Sherlock separately. It's just no execution at all, and it's what really pissed me off about this episode. It really did. It got on my nerves. I couldn't stop thinking about how much I hated just the end of the episode and how it just did not fit in with the entire Sherlock arc. It would have been better suited in... I mean, even the films couldn't have pulled that off. The films would have had better setup for that than this. I reckon Elementary would have probably had better setup for a twist than this.
Scathing.
It annoys me because this TV show is good. It has so much potential to do so much more, and I'm assuming that next episode is the final episode ever because of the upcoming schedules of the two actors, and I want to say that the way this is being going, it's looking like it's heading towards the end. But this isn't how you finish for a finale. You want to bring back an old villain, the oldest villain, the villain that has been plaguing the whole time, the villain that has been hyped from the very start of this series. People have been thinking, okay, Moriarty has gone and hacked into all the computers and it says miss me on all of them. That means he's got to be still out there. One of his associates is still out there. Moriarty, we're looking for him for every single episode So we expect him to be in drag at the end of this episode. We expect him or one of his associates to be there. But no, instead we get some character who we'd had no introduction to, no background history or anything like that, no warning at all, and no reason for them to be there. She should be evil. I'm sure it will come out in the next episode, but it just makes no sense at all. And
it'll be like the whole Jason Todd thing. It'll be like, you've forgotten about me, you've neglected me, you didn't care about me, I'm misunderstood, now I will kill you all. It'll be something like that. I can kind of see two sides to it. I don't like the reveal. I'm completely with you on that, but I can see both sides to it. On the one hand, you could say that it's classic misdirection. The whole thing of Moriarty putting a DVD out there or whatever he did to shut down everything to screen that, Sherlock in his mind is going to be, right, Moriarty's still out there. I need to find him. I don't know how he's out there. I need to devote all my mind power to this case. Whereas in the background, his sister's going to be there plotting revenge or whatever. So I can see that Moriarty, I'm assuming he was working with Eurus. That's the only way that it can be. And this is sort of Moriarty's legacy, almost. Like, we kept thinking...
I would hate if Eurus was a copycat. And just... Moriarty was going to do that missing if there was a situation where he could get off the roof and Sherlock could... He went hiding, and then he played that miss me. If she got hold of that tape and then started... Actually, it wasn't a tape, was it? It was just like a flash image on the screen everywhere that just says me. So if she just does it as a copycat, I'm going to be so angry. So angry.
Now, I don't know if Moriarty was in like some kind of coupling or pairing with Eurus, but that strikes me out of character for Moriarty because he seemed very much asexual. If he did have any sexual desires, it was almost for Sherlock. It was like, is that a weird kind of Joker Batman?
The thing is, he worked with a lot of people. Doesn't mean whether they're in a relationship or anything like that, because he worked with Irene Adler. He worked with all the people from the first series as well. Different associates. He is a criminal mastermind. Which means he has to branch out at some point. Maybe she's an associate. Who knows?
And I think this is a completely original character as well, because like last week with Toby, like I knew Toby the dog in Basil the Great Mouse Detective, but I thought because it was in that, I was like, this has to be a Sherlock character. And Wikipedia find that the dog did appear, so I was like, okay, Eurus Holmes must be a prevalent character, maybe a minor one, maybe is vaguely mentioned in one line in one of the books. I couldn't find anything on there, so I'm having to assume she's just a fictional creation for this series. If I'm wrong, please do drop me a comment and let me know, but I think she's been created for this series. But then, as I was saying, like, on the other hand, for a finale, you can't just throw a character we've never seen before into a finale and expect us to have any kind of connection to that character or any sense of dread from this character, because this is their first episode. And the next episode is going to be setting up their past. And by the end of that, she might be killed. She might just be apprehended or whatever's going to happen. So we won't have that impact. If you'd have brought Moriarty back, yes, you would have had to explain how he came back. But that's interesting viewing. And it shows that...
They never actually explained how Sherlock survived. So it'd be very interesting if Moriarty does to have a scene where Moriarty Sherlock and says, "How did you survive?" And Moriarty goes, "How did I survive?" And then maybe whisper each other's ears and just kind of have like a little scene between them. So we never know, and that's always kind of kept from us. But at least the characters in their universe know. That would be good. There's no setup at all. Like I said, most Sherlock characters or most Sherlock big villains have an entire series to set them up or an entire story arc to set them up. This was the final minute of the episode. That's it. All we've had. And we don't even have 2 more series to see how this plays out.
No, this might be it.
Probably the final series. So why are we being introduced to this new character?
Yeah, and I mean, you said, I can't remember which series it was, it's probably series 2 if Moriarty mentioned it. You mentioned that the concept of the final problem has been mentioned before and has been alluded to.
Yes.
And this is it. It's a missing sibling of Sherlock. Like, okay. Going back to your point about how we never actually know how Sherlock faked his death, I would argue we do. It does leave it open-ended, I will agree, but I don't know if it's Molly who gives her opinion of how he survived it, but that seems like the most logical one. But then she's like, I don't know, it might not have been that though, but it plays it all out.
We have shown 3 different ways that they survived.
Well,
we
the first one's just comedic.
Shown the one where he makes out with Moriarty, and then we also shown the one which he tells oh my god, character name.
Who?
Sherlock in the corner. Lowers the IQ of the room.
Oh god, he's in Rogue One. No spoilers. Anderson.
Yeah, but him.
Where has Anderson been this series, by the way?
Huh?
Where has Anderson been this series, by the way? He didn't die, did he? I can't remember back to series 3.
He went insane in series 2, 3, quit the police force because like he guilt tripped.
Oh, okay.
Killing himself.
That's my fault because I didn't watch series 3 before this.
I want to go ahead and say that like that was probably the most plausible one, the one that he told Anderson, but Anderson debunks it and says, if that is the correct version, why would you tell me of all people?
But I think that's the genius behind it. It does leave it open-ended, I will agree, but I think that if you're going to go with one, that's probably the one of how it went down. But I don't know. It's weird. If this is Moriarty's legacy, if this is what he has been building up in that, you know, he puts the idea into Sherlock's head that he is still out there when he really isn't. He would have been working with his sister the whole time. And then this is almost like his legacy, his next regeneration. It's almost like the Saw films. Like, I know you don't watch them, but spoiler alert, the main killer dies in the 3rd movie, and then he has apprentices who will continue on his legacy throughout all the rest of the sequels. It feels kind of like that with this. If she's an interesting character, that's fine, but I can't tell you what was going through. I was almost losing my mind at the screen when she was taking the wig off, and I thought, oh my god, it's Moriarty in drag. This is amazing. He's been playing all these different characters. He's a master of disguise. This makes sense. Even the way she was talking, how she kept referring to things as sexy. I'm like, that's how Moriarty talks. Like, this is going to be Moriarty, and clearly the makers were wanting that reaction from the audience as well. But then when it is revealed, it's so anticlimactic. You're like, oh, I wanted it to be Moriarty.
It's underwhelming. It's like,
it is.
It's like Moriarty. Oh,
yeah. So
have you seen the gif of the who looks really excited, putting his hands opening the fridge, and then looks down and then just immediately shuts it?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So yeah. I have no idea. It's going to be the case. I said this in episode 1. I'm going to have to see how episode 3 is, in all honesty, to see if I like it. I've got a feeling I won't, and I've got a feeling that you probably won't either. It is a shame. Now, you did say that Andrew Scott, is it? Please say I've got his name right. I could never remember it when I did the Spectre review. Oh my god, finally.
Andrew Scott. Andrew Scott is in the next episode's casting. However, I haven't seen any mention of the actress who plays what's her name?
Oh, the one who plays Mary.
What's Sherlock's sister's name?
Oh, Sherlock's sister.
No.
Eurus is her name. Yeah.
Seriously, no one will remember that name.
It means the East Wind Tayte.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Sean Brooke plays her. I'm going to see if I've actually seen her in anything else. She was in Lewis. She was in a series called Silk.
I want to go ahead and say that she looked a lot older once she'd taken off all the makeup and the prosthetics. And I was like, I thought she was going to look younger. But no, she looked a lot older, which is strange.
Yeah, and I think that Moriarty's only going to feature in the episode through flashbacks if we see a history with Eurus. If they then do bring Moriarty back and he shows up for like the last 10 minutes, that still will be shoehorned into me because this was their perfect opportunity to reintroduce him and they've missed it. They're clearly going in a different direction. I don't know if you've played it. Go on, sorry.
Oh no, go on, go
I'll
ahead.
say I've been watching a Let's Play of the new Telltale Batman game that came out. Now, I don't know if you play those games, so if you don't want spoilers on it, I won't mention it. But there's a new villain they've created in that game called Lady Arkham, and they big it up as this new villain, great villain, and you find out who the identity is. And I don't know if you want me to say who it is on here. I don't know if you're planning on playing it.
Big spoiler alert! Turn away, viewers at home. Go on, Chris. Who is it?
It's Vicky Vale. You know, the random Gotham reporter, and you're like, oh, okay, that's cool, I guess. It felt like that to me. It's so that did kind of let the wind out of the episode for me. No pun intended. It let the east wind out of the episode, but I don't know. I did enjoy this episode, and I'm going to have to watch them again. I think I probably did enjoy it more than episode 1 overall. I think the performances were a lot better. I liked the creative visuals of it. Toby Jones was fantastic, and I liked how they developed Watson's and Sherlock's relationship. I love the final scene as well, where, you know, Sherlock says it's okay, and Watson's like, it's not okay, and he goes, no, but it is what it is, calling back to the previous visit he had with the psychiatrist, and he hugs him. I thought that was a really nice moment. That was a believable human moment for Sherlock, and I think it's an earned moment, especially when we're middle episode of 4 seasons in. But then it's kind of ruined with a very anticlimactic twist that maybe we'll have more context when we get to the next one, but as it's a new character that's been introduced and needs to be set up, I don't see how it's going to be very engaging for that final episode going into it. So I'm feeling kind of deflated before I've even got to the finale. And I mean, Sherlock's one of my favorite TV series that's ever come out. I love Sherlock. I like all the series. Series 1 and 2 were definitely the best for me. I wasn't too keen on series 3, but it's still great TV. And this is still great TV as well. It absolutely is. But I don't know, maybe this is the right time to end it.
Dramatic and less detective-y. And I think in series 2? I think it was series 2. One of the lowest rated episodes, The Hounds of Baskerville. And that was a detective-based episode. And I feel like that was the swing, because I don't know why it was so low rated. It's the most famous.
It was probably the most predictable one, though.
Like, it's the most predictable because it's the most famous.
No, but I mean in terms of all the ins and outs of the episode. Like, I always watch a Sherlock episode and I'm always blown away by the ending. But Sherlock, I was like, but Baskerville, I was like, it's going to be like a scarecrow-like gas that generates fear. And then it turns out that it is exactly that. I knew who the bad guy was going to be. I predicted that. So it was the most predictable, but it was still a really, really good episode.
It was a detective episode, though. Like, you felt like you were able to predict it, but that maybe was because Sherlock was more vulnerable and it kind of left it to the viewers to figure out instead. And this episode was just like, they just told you. They just straight up told you what was going on. And that's not detective work. Like, Sherlock shouldn't have the villain. That's something for James Bond to do. Like, that is something like the villain reveals their master plan and then tries to kill you. No, Sherlock figures out the master plan and whilst catching them. That's Sherlock. Like,
I get that they need to adapt it in a different way, though, because if it was a detective episode, every single episode, then I don't think that would work for the narrative structure they're going for.
It's good to do maybe once and every now and then, but you have to remember, it's a detective show. It's a detective thriller show. That's what Sherlock is. You can't have 2 episodes in a row where there's barely any detective work.
And I inherently, I just think the writing was a lot stronger for the first 2 series. One of my favourite episodes was the season 2 finale, that exchange with Sherlock Holmes, Moriarty, and Watson on the building. I thought that was amazing. I was emotionally invested. And I hope I get emotionally invested in the next one. But so far, the emotional beats they've been trying to hit just really haven't been hitting with me. As I said, though, it's still great TV. I am still enjoying this series, just not as much as what's come before. But I've pretty much said everything I can on The Lying Detective. If you have, we'll round out.
I think I've said everything that I can.
Cool.
without getting too angry.
Yeah, save that for next week. So yeah, that'll do it for our review on Sherlock Holmes series 4. Sorry, Sherlock. I did that last time, I think. Sherlock series 4, episode 2, The Lying Detective. Be sure to comment, subscribe, and let us know what you thought of this episode. Did you enjoy it more than the first episode? How would you hold it up next to other episodes that have come out? And what did you think of that ending? Please do get commented and let us know. In terms of what's coming up on the channel, there will be more reaction videos from me. I'm getting into those again now. I'll be doing ones for Rebels and Cars 3 trailer 2. It's not the teaser. Yeah, that's it. Because I know there was another teaser which I didn't do. You'll find those. There'll be more movie reviews from me as well, especially as we are moving into the Academy Awards season. There are a lot of movies coming out in January, so it's finding time to get to see them all. There'll be a review for Silence and Assassin's Creed coming later this week. So yeah, lots of stuff happening with the channel. Please hit that subscribe button and
watch my new show.
Yes, it's your new show, Tate, and then we'll close out.
I'm going to be doing or trying to record a new episode, maybe 2 a week, maybe 3 a week, if I can. And for those where I talk about films. That's what we do on this channel, right?
Yeah, yeah, that is what we do. Well, that's what we try to do anyway. The first episode is up. You discuss Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows. Check that out. It's literally the video that came out right before this one. So until the next video, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.